All right, and it is the loaded Wednesday slate on Sideline Sports. This is part one. This is the Pundit. I am your host / moderator Denzel Snipes, and we got a loaded show for you as usual. Great in-depth topics, informative, educational. So please, take a ride with us. And right after this is the Sports Exchange on the South Florida Tribune, and then after that is Confidential. So hey, triple header. But let's get the crew in here real fast. Let's introduce this guy first. He seemingly is relocating up north to Ohio here pretty shortly. There's rumors that he's going to become a Guardians fan, but I highly doubt that. But let's go ahead and bring him in here. The still Rocky Mountain Rebel himself and the host of Under Review, and check out his blog on sports.scoop.com. This is Jordan Long.
Hey, Denzel.
Hey, what's
Yeah,
up?
it's the great, Northwest is going to be great to be here in Ohio. But, I got to keep my alliances to Colorado. You know that.
Hey, I totally get it. I totally understand, man. Home is where the heart is. And also, let's get in here. He, by way of Atlanta, Georgia, he lives out there in Alpharetta, born and raised in Quincy, Illinois, which is a little closer to Missouri than most. Joined by a bridge, last I heard, or even two bridges. But he's got Vince McMahon's haircut. He's just not nearly as old. Jacob Christner.
Huh. Yeah. And got Banana with me tonight. There's a reason why. I heard that Temple University is going to have some kind of fat-a-thon thing for fat people. Like a month or so. And I'm just making sure I eat enough of these things and drink enough water to make sure I don't have to join it.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like they can have their fat-a-thon. I'm going to keep myself in shape.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to say that because I thought, well, maybe you're eating to join it, and glad you're not.
No. I'm eating healthy to avoid it.
Which is a good thing.
All right, and last but not least, he is the captain, the crew. Hell, he's the whole damn boat most times. Of the SSFT, the SS South Florida Tribune. You can catch him next, as well as Jacob Christner, as well as myself on the Sports Exchange. Come on in here, Scott Morganroth.
Hey guys, good evening, everybody. Jordan, are you in Ohio or are you still out west?
I'm in Ohio currently. I am gonna. The plan is that I'm gonna move at Labor Day weekend to Ohio.
Geez, you missed a great show on baseball with K.R. Lombardia yesterday. He asked about you and you weren't there. I said, well, he couldn't make it, so we had to make the best of the group we had. But K.R. Lombardia remembers you. I'm telling you. But good to be on tonight, doubleheader, and of course, adjusting to new media is progressing real well. There are some chapters that are taking a long time, and there are others will be a little bit shorter. But and the Detroit Tigers are in town against our Marlins. I don't know how many games they're going to get to this week. We'll see what happens.
So you're going to be working on Labor Day, basically moving. You'll be working on Labor Day.
Pretty much, yes.
Uh-huh. That's not the idea.
No, I know. You're supposed to relax, but hey,
right.
It is what it is.
Yeah, well, before we get started, just want to remind everybody that if you are watching us on YouTube, to hit that like and subscribe button, and also feel free to engage in the comments. Like and subscribe Sideline Sports because it's more than just us. It's Confidential, which is coming on later on tonight. It's also the Gauntlet. It's also the Sideline Sports Show. It's also Brushing Them Back with Kobe White. It's First to 56. There's the Rude Dog Show, Gary Stevens Stein. We've got it all. So a lot of great content weekly from our mouth to your ears and your eyesight. So like and subscribe Sideline Sports. You also can catch us on Facebook. Follow us on Facebook, YouTube, DBTV, and Stream TV, as well as LinkedIn. And so coming up now is our Pundit Points. And I'll go ahead and start this one off. Okay. So, and this is semi-disturbing. Okay, it's just outright disturbing to mentioned, but it has to get said because there's a reason why the phrase says this is why we can't have nice things. Okay. As of late, there has been a rash, 3 this summer that we know of. If there are any others, please feel free to share. But there have been 3 incidents this summer that the majority of the public knows of fans throwing stuff at the artists on stage in concerts. Let's see. At a June 27th Pink concert, somebody found it acceptable to throw their mother's ashes on stage at her. Also, on a 19 June concert, a fan threw and connected and hit singer BB Rexha in the eye, resulting in a black eye. And then, not to be outdone, but on 6 July, a fan threw a phone at Drake at a concert in Chicago. Now, I don't know what has to happen. And the thing is it's not like, the artist, because it is said that their real money comes from touring, and touring means concerts, and no concerts and no tour. You know, um, we all know have seen that firsthand when COVID hit. No one was touring, no one was really making money. But I would hate to think that sometime in the future, if this keeps up, they're going to outright just say, you know what, people can't come to live shows and it's all going to be virtual, and you all are going to have to pay the same price as a concert ticket just to watch them virtually, or something. I don't know. It could be anything. But also, and then they interviewed the guy and one guy got charged with assault. And they asked him why he did it, and he was like, I just wanted to know how I felt like to do it. Like, really? Come on, dude. Like, okay, I'm going to run up on you with a crowbar in the parking lot and beam you in the back of the head because I want to know how it feels like, How does that sound? Yeah. To the artists out there, fans are crazy. Long gone on now there was an incident where a fan did throw a bra on stage at Drake, and that was actually accepted. But this was, when undergarments were thrown on stage, it meant that the woman liked the artist. That's fine. But when it gets to cell phones and dead family members' ashes, that's when it's going a little bit too far.
So, as we know, the NFL is cracking down on gambling for players. Yes, we know online gambling is huge. We see it with FanDuel, we see it with other sites, but it doesn't mean the players should do it. The Broncos, and I don't understand why he did this, their defensive end, Yumi Urazirak, was suspended for a year for gambling. Now, I never heard of the guy, and I'm a Broncos fan, but in 8 games, he only had 17 tackles last year. Not an impact player. Glad it wasn't an impact player, but I like what Sean Payton said, head coach of the Broncos. He said, quote, shame on us, and we're going to send them home for a year where they can't be around. The idea that you just go away, shame on us. Basically saying shame on the NFL, shame on us as coaches to failure for these guys to learn how not to gamble. The thing is, though, gambling is legal in most states, and I get that, but the NFL is sending a strong message you can't do this. So the players really do need help in order to not get suspended. I do agree with Sean Payton because it is shame on the NFL for not giving them better guidelines.
All right. Well, you know what? I've heard a lot of speeding ticket situations, but this one might take the cake. Okay. Minnesota Vikings first round pick Jordan Addison told the state trooper who clocked him going 140 miles per hour in a 55-mile-an-hour zone last week that he was speeding because of an emergency involving his dog. Really? My God. I can only imagine if the dog was taken by ambulance, how much it would go. When this situation here, he was pulled over without instant resistance in a Lamborghini Urus at 3:07 a.m. And anytime you do something at 3:07, it usually leads to trouble. But the trooper was also driving eastbound on Interstate 94 in St. Paul, about a mile outside of downtown. I've heard a lot of things, but this one takes the cake. If indeed his dog needed emergency help, more power to him. I just can only imagine, what would have happened if, God forbid, he had a family member and he didn't call 911. I don't know. But when you're talking about a guy who's a first round pick for the Minnesota Vikings, a team that might be, a little bit in transition, it makes you wonder. So I don't know. I thought I've heard everything in terms of speeding ticket, but I guess I haven't. Shame on me, Mr. Addison. This is a new one for me and everybody else listening.
All right, fans. This is another fan one, Denzel. I'm going to bring this part up to you right now. See, I always do say you don't know what you're talking about quite a bit, but see, at least I can say this with baseball, basketball, football, maybe hockey, maybe anything, that you at least played grade school, high school, maybe. Okay, let's say a little mid college. And of course, the highest end ones aren't going to be doing this. But every time I got to go on Twitter, I have to see every one of you tell me, not me, but just every one of us, how much fight knowledge you have during the UFC fights. And I promise you, 99.9% of you have never been in the ring. Let me tell you this. I, a lot of what I say about fans is because I've actually done most of the stuff that I talk about that the fans will judge. I've been in front of a camera and behind the camera before, acting and producing. I have also been in MMA fights before. I have done that twice, lost both. I have been on stage, stand-up comedy, like 25 times. These are things that get judged on relentlessly by people that don't know a thing what they're talking about. And especially with something as dangerous as MMA fighting, I would even just say go in there and spar. I'm not saying get into the ring and get into the tournament. I'm just saying go in and spar with a top-notch spar just for a few seconds, those 10 seconds that you last to understand. Then maybe you would have more respect for them instead of pretending you know what you would do when you're in that arm bar, which guess what? You want to know what you're talking about there? You're talking about you bet on the guy who's in that arm bar. You're not talking about anything with any kind of knowledge whatsoever. So get yourself in the ring. Maybe go train. Because guess what? I promise you this right now. Anybody that's a serious best in fighting, they don't judge anyone, not even the bad ones.
Absolutely, and those are our pundit points, and most definitely on to your point, Jacob. You know, it's seemingly the ones who have never even been there before. And it's your typical, internet thugs or Facebook gangsters or whatever, and they seemingly want to. It's almost as if like nowadays, it's not about discussions; it's about superiority. Someone has to, and more often than not, it's someone who tries to make themselves look like the smartest person in the room, but they're really the three part of the three dumbest.
Well, and that is true. And the problem I have, it's just the problem I have with something like this is fighting's dangerous.
Yes,
Fighting dangerous. Wrestling is when they talk about it. Wrestling's dangerous. Something I did into a training thing before where I took the chops. Like when the early on with the chops, I didn't do it long, obviously, but I got to that thing. I know what I have an idea what each and every side has it does. Just
hmm
to say I've done. And it's like that's the big problem I have with fans is a lot of fans is the fact that they don't even have. I mean, we talk about coaching. At least I volunteered on that. Just get yourself in there and see what you would do. That is the big thing before you even bet, much
yeah,
less anything else. Because the biggest thing is you ever seen the hey what's up Jordan? Because you've seen the movie Casino, right?
yes,
Remember why Ace Rothstein was so good? Because he knew everybody, what everybody was doing, and had knowledge.
right.
See, this is the problem with a lot of fans. There's not a lot of knowledge. They're basically gambling and putting on their 50-50. And you get hot and you get cold. And then they get screaming and hollering and saying this is what they do and how you suck. You can't be doing that because especially when you don't know what the situation is.
Right, right. No, totally agree. Well, time to get on to our first topic of the evening, and that is Live Golf and UFC. Will sports end up saving Donald Trump's legacy? So I took a look at this topic earlier, and I'll give mine really fast before I pass the floor. Um, in recent years past, Donald Trump has shown up to UFC events. He's been booed. He actually finally got cheered when he went to an Alabama Crimson Tide home game. He recently showed up at a UFC event and was introduced in the crowd. Liv Golf has had ties to the Republican Party, has also had ties to Saudi Arabia. Don't want to make it political or anything like that. I will just say this much. Sports wise, I don't think there's a damn thing that can save Donald Trump's legacy because he already screwed that up with the USFL in the 80s. That's why. Everything he touches, he ruins.
God.
Who killed the USFL? Go watch that. It's a very great 30 for 30. This man got all the owners to put in on an antitrust lawsuit. They won, but it bankrupted the league. A league because he wanted to own an NFL team. And Roselle said, "No, we're not touching you. You are barred. Me and any of my successors, you are barred from the NFL." So, me personally, I think that ship has long sailed. But I want to pass it to Jordan and get your thoughts about this.
You know, Denzel.
Before Jordan goes on, though, I have some real strong opinions on this because I lived it back in 1983 with this guy.
Nice.
What a
Jordan
topic tonight.
Jordan, and then we'll move it to Scott and Jacob. Go ahead, man.
I never saw the documentary you're talking about, but I do know he definitely ruined the USFL. I don't want to get too political, but I definitely think if you look at his sports legacy, that definitely hurt it. Of course, we know about his presidential legacy. I'm not going to get into that. But, I mean, the guy was cheered at the UFC event, which I get it. People like him. Some people don't. But the truth of the matter is you killed a league. Not many people can say that, even though that he wanted, like you were saying, he wanted a NFL franchise. He's never going to get it. Yes, he has the money, or did have the money at the time, but he's not going to get it. The thing is, though, I don't think this will end up saving his legacy at all. It's already tarnished anyway.
Yeah, pretty much so. When you kind of have. By the way, Jordan, you're frozen. You may want to leave and come back in. But yeah, it's one of those things where you just don't let him near anything. He's the guy that you say, all right, if you're gonna come in here, like, don't touch nothing. All right, but I want to move it over to. Actually, I'm gonna move it to Jacob. Then I'll move it to Scott because Scott, I know he's loaded.
Yeah, this segment will be a lot longer with me, so go ahead and get Jacob to do it.
Yeah, I'm gonna get Jacob's real fast, and then we'll pass it on to Scott. Go ahead, Jacob.
Well, one of the biggest things I brought that up for was because Donald Trump ruined the USFL. This is correct. He also essentially saved UFC. I'll give this story real fast. UFC, because of John McCain, could not get a play outside of like Puerto Rico, Japan, any of those places. They could not get a place outside of some little bitty armory in like Iowa. Maybe all that kind of stuff. I mean, they literally would book a place and then it would be shut down because out of threats from John McCain and everybody else. Don't have the UFC there. They're trying to shut it down. The reason McCain and Trump started fighting in the first place because McCain was asking Trump to shut it down on the thing when he said it to it, and Trump's like, no. So Trump put 3 or 4 straight UFC events in his place, and it basically saved the UFC. So he put it on that thing. So he essentially helped save that. And he did ruin the USFL. The thing about Trump, and this is the thing, his shelf life and everything he does is 4 years. Every time. Here's the thing. For the initial first real estate, 4 years. Then it would start to have a fade. So guess what? He goes to casinos. That goes about 4 years. Then he gets his. Then remember, he goes into bankruptcy. Then he gets his comeback, and then he gets real estate. Then little by little, and guess what? Hollywood. Then Hollywood with its shows. That was about 4 years. Then guess what? Politics. 4 years. And who knows if he has a second run? That would be 4 years because that would be his only other chance. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That'd be his only other chance. And the 4 years thing comes with comebacks too. So it's like that. 4 years is it before he runs himself loose. He's too arrogant to ever have a thing and too inconsistent. But at the same time, the reason I said about this, because he made 250, he said, I was reading up on this in Sportico. He made $237 million from his courses last year from Live Golf. and from his tournaments and from the from all the membership fees and everything like that. And then he's had two straight events that, guess what? Dana White loves Trump because he did save it. So, and then he got those, and then guess what? You've got all those fighters. You got all those fighters that went up to him and love him. John Jones, I believe, went up to him. All those, it's like you got to wonder if sports by itself, because he has people that hate him, but you have to wonder if the sports by itself will do the Jason Aldean that just won't care. That's what I meant by that. It's like he made money off of that thing. That was the only place he made money outside of politics was sports. Everything else, he's lost money this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, Scotty Too Hottie, it's on you. The floor is yours.
Oh, where do I start? Oh, my goodness. July 4th just came here on July 26th. My goodness. All right, well, where do I start? Well, let's get the UFC out of the way, okay? I think UFC is called human cockfighting, and I don't really give a darn about it. I remember going to Louisiana a while back and used to see birds fight, and that reminded, and they fight in these things called cages, you know what I mean? I don't know if they're octagons or any of that business, but it's called human cockfighting. Never cared for it. The only thing I ever cared about in UFC was I did have a chance to meet up with Chuck Liddell in Miami for a Super Bowl. Took a picture with him. Good. That's the only thing I can say good about the UFC. Now, we all know that Dana White's a shrewd business person. There's no doubt about that. He built this mega tross or whatever you want to call it into something that people pay attention on the heels that when boxing is dying and trying to get revived. I've always been a big person and proponent of boxing anyways. I can tell you all the photos I've had through the years, and to me, those were thrills like you wouldn't believe. So, yeah, for Trump and White to get along, yeah, what would you expect, okay? Whatever. Let's go back to the Rocky movie, okay, with Drago. Whatever Drago hits, he destroys, right? Remember that? I don't know if my Russian stuff is very good, but you get the drill, okay? And no, I haven't had that much caffeine today, I promise you, okay, because I had some blood work done, okay? And I don't need it tonight either. I got a lot to do. So let's carry this bad boy over to the USFL. The only thing I'm surprised with Donald Trump was that he didn't bring Herschel Walker in to be on his cabinet, because after all, Herschel Walker was his prize running back for the Generals, right? So why not have Herschel Walker in the cabinet? Now, didn't Herschel Walker try to run for office in Georgia recently?
Yeah, it's lost.
Yeah, it didn't quite work out, did it?
Yeah.
So now, let's go back to that famous day when I was covering the USFL championship game featuring the Arizona Wranglers and I believe the Philadelphia Stars. And my goodness, okay, Donald Trump invited me, and 3 or 4 other people up to his hotel and told us all about the direction that he wanted to take it. I said, oh my goodness. How do I go out there and spell WFL, World Football League, that failed back in the 70s, okay, that tried to compete? They were going out there and playing like the Michigan entry. The Detroit Wheels were playing at Eastern Michigan Stadium. My goodness, a far cry from what we were doing, and went bankrupt by the end of the year. But the one guy that I really felt bad for, and it was just too bad that he had gotten sick, was a guy by the name of John Bassett. If you're familiar with the Bassett name, his daughter, Carlee Bassett, was a tennis player and a pretty good one. John could not fight against Trump because he was dying of cancer. He begged the rest of his people to go out there and don't do it. But he did anyways, okay? And as a result, there was another guy that worked with Bassett named Stephen Arkey who committed suicide. Suicide. And he was with the Tampa Bay Bandits. So you think of this so-called settlement of $3 that became $1, and it obviously, to me, is the biggest joke on the planet. But remember, though, while it became $1, when he tried to buy the Buffalo Bills for cash money, how well did that work out? None. So when we put the things in perspective, I guess the only way I can say it, whatever Donald Trump does, he destroys. Okay. And that should be what we go out there and tag this show, whatever Donald Trump does. Well, we'll probably get a lot of hits there. I don't know what some of these people are in the chat room, probably fake people in there, but who knows if they're understanding this, and I don't really particularly care. But to me, you're right, though, about the live, okay? The only reason he was making money on it was because they were playing at his golf courses. Liv was looking for anybody with a little bit of notoriety and money, and they found the right guy in Trump. And I know that one of his courses is out in Doral in Miami. So what can I tell you? The USFL is something that is dear to me. Back in the mid 80s, I covered the league. I really enjoyed it. It was my first stop. I covered the NFL in the early 80s when I was working with the Dolphins, but this was a neat league that produced a lot of great players. Jim Kelly, Steve Young, guess what? They were pretty good. Reggie White, ever heard of him? He was pretty good. Mm-hmm. What about Sam Mills? Pretty good, right? I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, now this USFL is pared down to spring programming with the networks picking it up because obviously in this situation, they need programming. They're not going to pay them a lot of money. It's a feeder system. So what do I think of all of this when you put it all together? Okay. Nothing's going to save Donald Trump's legacy. Nothing. And here's a guy that got impeached, but guess what? Wasn't removed from office. So what does the word impeach mean? Don't mean a whole lot when you stick it.
Indict. Yeah. It doesn't mean you're, but no, here's the thing. You talked about how he tried to buy Buffalo Bills cash money. Check that cash isn't monopoly. Because, you just got to be truthful to that. Because Donald Trump takes cash one time and one time only. He'll take a stack with him so he can do tips to course girls or something like that. Right. He doesn't use cash on anything he ever does in his life, and he gets tax abatements like crazy. He never uses his own cash, so you have to always be suspicious.
Yeah, but according to my reports, he was willing to pay $1 million in cash for him, but obviously the owners, number one, didn't want him. And thankfully, the savior of Buffalo, the Pegula family, Terry Pegula and his wife, obviously, who's right now dealing with heart issues, Kim, prayers to Kim. She's been dealing with this cardiac issue for a while. Terry Pegula, who also owns the Buffalo Sabres, turned out to be the right owner for that franchise. Mm-hmm. And Trump was denied again. Oh, yeah. Is that enough history, Dens?
Oh, hey.
I lived it.
Yeah, absolutely. No wonder. Yeah, see, this is why I had you go last, because I knew this one was going to be loaded for you. No, much thanks to just your commentary, but everyone's commentary as well.
I'll bet you knew that when you came up with this topic, you never thought you'd have a guy that actually covered the league way back then.
Actually lived it, yeah. And it's crazy how you brought up how him and Dana White are friends. You know who's friends with the both of them? Vince McMahon. So you have three shrewd operators that operate in that old school style and just, this is why none of it surprises me.
So is this a recreation of the Three Stooges? Because if it is, I'll buy it.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah. Three Stooges reincarnated.
Well, who's going to be the bald one? Who's going to be the bald one like Carlee?
Trump. He actually has today.
That's what I was thinking.
Actually. No, he doesn't actually. It's just a terrible hair.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to go on to our next topic. Just want to do this one really, really quick. It's just a follow-up to my pundit point from last week. So last week I talked about a woman who was deemed missing in the state of Alabama, and how she found she came home 2 days later, and it was already in question. So there was holes in her story that the internet community had thought up, and also the authorities as well. Well, as it turns out, it was a hoax. She openly admitted to her attorneys that she made the entire thing up. And this was released in a press release or press conference, rather, by the chief of police out there in Alabama. The city's off the top of my tongue right now, but the main point I wanted to hit was this one, and that is how it affects missing white woman syndrome in media, because it seemingly for once it was like the nation stopped and was looking for this woman, praying for this woman, and donating as well. Now, anyone who has paid attention to media a lot in the last 20, 30, maybe 40 years knows what missing white woman syndrome is. I'll give you an example. This is pretty much when there is a missing upper middle class to upper class white woman, and it gets all the press coverage. But if there's a missing minority, a black, Hispanic, Asian, whatever, they get little to no press. One example being the case of Latoya Figueroa in 2005, who went missing just outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She was 5 months pregnant. And days later, after her disappearance, think about maybe 2 weeks later, her body was found dead along with her unborn child. The father of the child was actually charged and convicted of double homicide. And that got little or no press coverage because at the exact same time, Natalie Holloway was missing, and that got all of the rage. You couldn't even turn on ESPN without seeing Natalie Holloway, But I've been on, the internet threads and everything, and like I said, for once you actually had like nationwide coverage of a supposed missing, black woman and whatnot, and then come to find out it's a hoax. So I want to actually start this off with Jordan. How do you think that it will affect missing white woman syndrome in media?
Well, I mean, I think honestly, you do have to take these cases seriously. But if it's a hoax, are we really going to believe, a minority black woman? Unfortunately, this country, like you were talking about, is we believe the white women. And you were talking about how, we were looking for a white woman as opposed to a minority, which is still screwed up in this country. But are we really going to believe a black woman now when they say they're, kidnapped? I have no idea. We're going to believe a white woman because she's white. I think, honestly, though, we have to believe all women. Whether or not they're hoaxes or not, you just have to believe them and take their word for it. I just don't like getting into race because of the fact that you were talking about we're looking for a white woman and not a minority. We should look for all of them. I just don't like how the media portrays everything with race.
Right. And that's and no and that's and those are very solid points, because in theory it shouldn't be about race. A missing person's a missing person,
Mm-hmm.
but there's been a history of this, and that's why it gets acknowledged. Moving on to you, Scott, and I know your forte has really been sports, but I mean, I like to think we're in the same brotherhood now. You
Yeah.
just got
Yeah.
a few generations on me, but
Yeah.
what's your take on all of this?
Well, number one, okay, my forte is actually drifting over to non-sports because I'm finding the storylines are more intrigued than they've ever been, and I actually began that trend earlier in the year. That's item number one. Number two, it's not going to affect anything. It's a hoax. I don't care who believes what, white, black, first. It don't matter to me. It doesn't. Anytime you have fake news, that's all it is, just fake news.
Yeah.
So you just have to know where. I guess the one thing, and I'm working on some of this in my book, is you just have to know what sources are reliable, which ones aren't.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. I mean, I don't think, it's like anything. You have to go out there and look at every case as an individual case. When you look at missing child reports and all that, those are the ones you take seriously, then you have to do it. But you can't overanalyze about one case you don't believe. I don't buy it.
Right.
Listen, we can say what we want about the media. Okay, criticize it all you want. And I'll defend it as long as I'm alive, because I feel that without the media, nobody gets informed about anything. Now there's just a lot more aspects of it. So anybody that ever comes to me and doesn't like media, all I can tell you is if you go to your nearest department store and you pick up a dartboard, I don't mind throwing darts at these individuals that portray my field as something, when again, it all comes down to the source. So, without us, you don't have information. Okay. So no, I guess the bottom line is I wouldn't read into it either way. I really wouldn't.
No, that's very fair enough. And lastly, Jacob, your thoughts on this?
Oh, it's already over. It's already over. I mean, they gave her a shot. It's already over. Let me tell you this. We already had that giant submarine story. 5 rich white people at the bottom of that thing before it imploded. That thing whatsoever. And that became a story for ages. And what was it, about 6 days worth? And it was already blew up by 2.
Yeah.
And it's like, and they still kept it going and kept getting going. Oh, what was the story that I was the one that was bringing this up here, and absolutely no one else but local TV did? Remember Sir Antonio Brown, the little 6-year-old kid?
Yeah.
To the little 6-year-old kid who got shot in his yard, 30
Front
shells
yard.
around him, probably a gang hit. I don't know what in the world to think, but it was in Kansas. You want to know what was going on at the same time? That whole Daniel Penny situation with the homeless guy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's like, but a little 6-year-old boy. Yeah, it's a black boy. It's a boy. Little 6-year-old boy gets shot up in his yard. Nothing. So guess what? This caught wind, and the reason it caught wind was because she screams and I've got this, blah blah blah. They actually believed it. Now, no way. Unfortunate, but considering the last two white people that they put all of their press on, regardless of shame or whatever, the story was true. Every bit of the story was true, and it's going. And now there's going to be like you were talking about you're talking about the minority women, the minority everything. They're going to go missing. There's going to be not going to be stories. There's going to be even the Carlee has just made it a whole hell of a lot worse.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm going to move on to our next topic here. Just go real quick on this one, and that actually is an update. So, Florida A&M University, University football program spinning for vulgar rap video. As of 2 days ago, that ban has actually been lifted. Via ESPN.com, Florida A&M athletic director Tiffany Dawn Sykes stated Monday the football team will be allowed to resume using its facilities while the university will still investigate the unauthorized filming of a rap video. Basically, last Friday, team activities were suspended by Coach Willie Simmons after a vulgar rap video was recorded and released online in FAMU's locker room. Whose topic was this, Jacob?
Yep.
All right, kick us off.
Comes from our last topic. We talked about this. Guess what came just on the same week? Jason Aldean.
Yep,
Jason
absolutely.
Aldean. Jason Aldean. This is the thing. You know what this was? This was a black coach that did this too. This is Coach Carter. This is a Coach Carter situation. Only Coach Carter was locking him out because he wanted him to get good grades. This one is a respect situation. I guess he's working on. But the biggest thing about all of this kind of stuff, it's the fact that as far as the music thing goes, it's like truthfully, it is truthfully the music. It's all cultural. Like Jason Aldean's is a cultural down south, Midwest, all that kind of stuff like that. They're going to love, and one side's going to hate, and then you get the other side here with the rap. With the rap video, and every bit of this is a cultural situation. But it's like instead, it became a different situation where this wasn't a white president that ended this; it was a black coach.
Yeah. Now, before you continue, you know what this also reminds me of, and you remember this. Remember the 2003 Miami Hurricanes who recorded that rap song, and it became controversial. There was no suspension or anything like that. It was Coach Larry Coker that was that coach, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. There was no suspension or anything. But then here you have this incident. Listen, everybody on this panel knows as far as college sports, okay, this would never have flown in John Thompson's locker room. This would have never have flown in a Nick Saban or a Lou Holtz or anybody like that, So
John Thompson especially. John Thompson scared the ever-living life out of the biggest drug dealer in Maryland.
Oh yeah, so they wouldn't dare shoot a rap video like that or anything. So
yeah, I'm not saying he scared the life out of the biggest drug dealer that side of the world, and it's like John Thompson talking about I didn't scare BS. John Thompson was 6'10". He was the biggest mob boss that side of the East. Yeah. And he was because he was protecting his players.
Absolutely. Now, before you continue, just a question, and I'm just comparing situations here, okay? Would you say between the two situations, between 03 and now, the rap song and the rap video, okay, would you say Coker was a weak coach and a non-disciplinarian, or would you say today's kids have just gotten worse?
Halfway, half. Because Coker was very weak because he didn't do. Coker was probably because of the majority of whatever your players are, he's probably afraid of the backlash. Mm-hmm. But But the biggest thing about it, this is where a black coach. Here's the thing about this. This is a black coach that's tired of the culture thing.
Right.
They're tired of what's considered culture. You're seeing it more on social media and everything. There are black people tired of being considered culture when it comes to black being the disgusting lyrics and they'll call it bitches, hoes, blah, 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 blah. They're tired of hearing the word. They're tired of hearing that as the culture, and they're tired of saying you're white if you're smart.
Yeah.
They're tired of the people are getting tired of hearing that. They just want to be the vast majority of people, black, white, or whatever, just want to be what they are. Athletes, smart, all that kind of stuff. We don't need these 1970s stereotypes.
Right.
And it's like this is a coach that I think this is a coach that just got tired. He's just tired of the consideration. He's tired of all this. It's like what Dick Gregory once said. Dick Gregory once said, I was watching an interview with him. Dick Gregory once said this. You think you can go into a white neighborhood and try to take it over? No, because they won't. They'll be like black people shoot black people. Could you go into the white neighborhood in the middle of the subdivisions and take over? No, because they won't tolerate it. What happened during 2020? Someone tried kicking in a gate to go into St. Louis. Very first house of those two with the AR-15s.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? They got arrested. They got their guns taken. But guess what? They got acquitted and they got their guns back and all that kind of stuff like that. But I'm just saying.
This is the lawyer and his wife.
Yep. And he ended up running for a house. He ran for the state house too, and he won. But I'm just saying that was the point of something. Is Dick Gregory said that himself. They won't tolerate it. Guess what? Very first house shows up. Those two with guns, and then no one else tried it after that.
Yeah.
And it's like it's a different cultures have just got everybody just has to take care of one another.
Right.
We just all have to. I mean, and I would go on to Scott. I apologize. Here's the thing. What was it? James Evans on the Good Times.
Oh,
he
man.
said to Michael. Yeah, he said, huh?
No, James Evans, a top five father in sitcom history.
Oh, he's my top two. I like him and Phil. But it's like, but let me say this. He said it himself. Oh, he said, but this is for Michael, the little militant midget goes, this is for Black Pride. You're black, be proud. That's what the world I want. I want your white be proud, your black be proud, your Chinese be proud. You're proud. We have got to quit being proud, being shamed, being all this stuff. We have just got to start having pride in ourselves, everybody.
Yes, yeah, pride in oneself, absolutely. And Jordan, your thoughts about this whole thing, and you know, you think about the rap video from back then, and it's just crazy how like things just kind of go. Because I mean, like, what's next, right? Is it going to be like an unauthorized concert off campus or something? You know, we've gone from songs to videos, and I mean, concert you would think is the next step, right? But just give me your thoughts about this whole thing.
I honestly am really confused how the rapper even got access to the Florida A&M football facilities, because I would think you would need to go through the proper channels. I mean, of course, if they went through the proper channels, this wouldn't have been a big story. But the fact of the matter is this rapper got there, you know, without permission. And that's where, did a player bring him in, or who brought him in? I'm glad like they shut down the program for a little bit to investigate. Now, you know, it's back to normal, but still, I have to wonder who let him in, because I would think it'd be hard to get into a practice facility unless a student had brought him in, especially a major program like that. I know for me, example, at a Division II school, it's a lot easier where I went to, you know, get in with unauthorized, you know, permission, but here it's a lot harder. So I just wonder where the security and where it broke down.
No, that's actually a great point. It's like, you know, how did they even get in there in the first place? Did they know somebody that sneaked them in, or what was going on? But lastly, I want to round this up with Scott and your thoughts about this. And I know that you've covered your share of college sports throughout the years. I know you've never seen anything quite like this.
Well, let's break down point number one. FAMU is an HBC school, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So do you think they're going to have enough staff there to really enforce anything? Because obviously they're a lower budget anyways operation. Is that right? I believe.
Very true.
So let's talk about money and lack of personnel to do what you guys are talking about, right?
Mhm.
Now, let's go back to the University of Miami situation back in 2003. Social media wasn't as prevalent then as it is now. Now, talk about Larry Coker. He won a national championship, but guess what? He inherited I believe Butch Davis's players. And as a result, he won with them when Butch Davis took the Cleveland Browns job.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about it, what did Larry Coker do when everybody knew he couldn't recruit? He was gone. He ran out of players. What did he end up doing later on down the line? Started the University of Texas San Antonio program from scratch and didn't stay there a whole lot.
I do want to add one point before you continue, because you said that there was no social media back then, right?
Well, there wasn't. It wasn't as big as what I said.
It wasn't as big, but it's still widespread because they were the Miami Hurricanes.
Well,
if this
that's
was the
true.
University of Montana, no one would care.
That's true.
If this was the University of Tacoma, no one would care. But because it was the Hurricanes, that's why it blew up.
Oh, yeah, no. Hey, no debating. I work with the Hurricanes. I know about the U. I don't even, is that how to do it? I don't even know. And yet I'm covering the school. And the U was the first university I covered back in the Howard Schnellenberger days. But social media is more prevalent now than it ever has been. We all know it. That's one of the things I'm talking about in my book anyways, amongst other things. But the main thing is this, okay? You know, they're having an investigation. They shut it down for a couple of days, mainly just to relax the thing a little bit and then find out what there is. And when they found out there was no teeth to the whole darn thing, then they had to let it go. Remember, we're still talking late July and college football is right around the corner, I mean, so, I think the problem is, I don't want to say innocent till proven guilty, but sometimes people are guilty till proven innocent. I don't know if that's the case here at all. We're talking about a rap video. I don't know much about rap, so pardon the ignorance here. I really don't know much about it. That isn't my kind of music, but that doesn't mean it's bad music. But nowadays, when things get on social media, it doesn't take much for anything to go viral. So what are you going to do? I mean, I've even asked a big question many years ago to a guy by the name of Don Mattingly about a no-hitters question. It got 392,000 hits off of a respected colleague's Twitter account. Who knows? I mean, I didn't care. It was just a typical baseball question. But when people listen and they get interested, you never know what's going to happen. So, well, I know that they were suspended at one time and restored. I think this is really a non-story.
Well, just letting you know, Denzel, if it was the University of Montana, it'd be a Morgan Wallen concert.
There you go.
Yeah, absolutely. Just want to move on to our next topic. We got about probably 10 minutes left. We got two more topics in the Pundit shots. So, real quick, NFL bans player equity into a team. Aaron Rodgers and Caleb Williams are actually aiming for it. Whose was this one?
Me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead and kick it off.
This is, you got to remember, guess who's got player equity into his team right now? Lionel Messi. Yep. Guess who's got that? Guess who's working on his aim for that in the NBA? LeBron James. Guess who's working on that he will get those. You know that's going to happen. So what does the NFL do? They ban theirs. And you want to know when that's going to end? When Jerry Jones dies.
Yep.
That's when it's going to end, when Jerry Jones dies. This is a whole Jerry Jones thing. He runs 31 other owners. He runs their lives. If he doesn't want it, they won't get it. And that is the big thing. And this is the deal. Guess what? It's one thing for Aaron Rodgers. He's near 40 years old. It was a good idea to go for that. You know what I'm saying? But look how intelligent Caleb Williams is. For thinking like that at, 19?
Mm-hmm.
He's thinking like that at 19. That's highly intelligent dude. And
he's also got a little bit of motivation, some hardware that he won last December.
Yeah, but I'm saying that's an intelligent mindset for a kid that age. Yeah. That he was wanting to aim for, equity in the team for his deal, for his first rookie deal. Which, guess what? Jerry Jones dies. That's next. That's going to be next. It's like, who's going to be first? I mean, when does Jerry Jones die? I mean, that is the thing. Who's first when Jerry Jones goes? If it would be in a few months and he has a heart attack, it's Caleb Williams. And then it's Drake May and everybody else if that would happen there. But it's going to be the next ones up. And it's like, truthfully, we're looking at, you want to know what we're looking at right now? Patrick Mahomes already has stock in like 2 or 3 different teams in other sports.
Right.
He has it in the soccer and everything like that. You know, Justin Fields is going to do it.
Yep.
Regardless of if he's in Chicago or he goes elsewhere, because he'll be a star elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Even if he doesn't stay in Chicago or he does stay in Chicago, he'll be a star elsewhere. So the next one, he will be the one because he's very smart. That kind of stuff will happen there. The all that kind of stuff. You're gonna see that's gonna be the next part of it. Just watch. I'm just gonna call it right now. It's the Jerry Jones death watch. Then we're gonna see real changes.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Real quick, Jordan, your thoughts about this whole thing?
I understand what the players want. They want to have a little bit of a stake in their teams, especially, a lot of these players, once they're retired, they don't have a whole lot to do after football. But the thing is that I look at it is, especially in Caleb Williams's, eyes, how many teams are you really going to play for? Do you want to stake in every single team? That's why I think the NFL is like, we can't have this because especially if Caleb Williams plays for a couple of teams, does he want ownership stake in that? It just doesn't make sense. I get doing it in other sports like Patrick Mahomes has done, but doing it in your own team doesn't make sense. But I do agree with Jacob that once Jerry Jones dies, things are definitely going to change in the NFL.
Right. I mean, it's crazy because I mean, let's face it, okay? Like, it's arguable that he's the best businessman in the NFL. Seemingly, that's the bar. The standard is like him,
Mm-hmm.
So it is essentially a ticking clock, if you will. I want to switch it over to Scott. By the way, Jacob, after this, we may have to go right to Pundit shots because we got
okay. It's fine. That's fine.
Scott, and then we'll move the SAG the next week.
Yeah.
All right, Scotty, on you, man.
All right. Well, Aaron Rodgers did have equity in the team. It was the Chicago Bears. The problem is he left he ended up leaving.
I have to laugh.
Division.
Yeah, the Lions in the pack too. So
no, he had it, but he gave it up when he signed with the New York Jets. So he decided to give up Arlington and hang out at the Empire State Building. No big deal. Yeah. If that isn't good enough, why don't you go over to the Bronx, Aaron? Because I don't know who you're going to own in that division because nobody's really yet seeing. They're all looking to knock you on your BACK. Okay, item number 1. I want to find out from the panel here what classes are Caleb Williams taking. I hope right now, if he's thinking between now and doing all this, he better be taking a lot of good business classes because you better be able to know how you're going to aim for what team you're going to do. Now, maybe if you're lucky, you'll follow Dwayne Wade and maybe own a WNBA team. Maybe you will find an MLS team that doesn't have Messi on it. Okay, and you might be able to afford that. Of course, all the 2 teams in LA are taken care of, so you can't go for
pickleball.
Yeah, well, everybody's buying that. I mean, but just make sure you have some good doctors, and you better make sure you have a caretaker for what goes up, goes down, and you better have good Blue Cross Blue Shield coverage because you're going to need it. Although I don't plan to play it because my wife has enough things to deal with me keeping me on my feet. Although she might consider taking out an insurance policy on my throat. So the reality is, okay. Go ahead, Caleb. WNBA, MLS are looking for you. You're not going to be able to afford MLB because these guys are like billionaires and pay a lot of money. You think you're going to afford the NBA? No, not really. And if you want some interesting NBA stuff, join us on the Sports Exchange tonight. I got some of that. The NHL, well, you might be able to buy that. You might even be able to buy a Canadian team at low cost. Go north of the border. Hockey might be a good investment for you. But don't hold your breath, kid. Take some good business classes, and hopefully you won't fall into that other hoax situation, and this won't be fake news.
Hey, there you go. All right, we got a few minutes left, so we're going to close it out with our pundit shots, and I'll go ahead and go first on this one. So, last night at Oracle Park, Giants fans were in unison with A's fans enchanting to A's ownership to sell the team. So now it has gone to DEFCON 2, stage 2 of the madness. When you have rivals that have united in essentially a Unite the Bay, it's basically, justice for A's and A's fans. This is reminiscent of Steelers fans who were in semi-protest of Art Modell selling the Browns back in 1996, saying that it would mess up the rivalry and such. there are just some things that are bigger than rivalries, and this is absolutely one of them. Anytime that hated rivals can come together for a cause, I'm all for it.
Well, the University of Colorado looks like I've heard reports that they're going to either rejoin the Big 12 or they're in talks. Honestly, they shouldn't have left the Big 12 for the Pac 12. The last time they were in the Pac or the Big 10, Big 12, I should say, was in 2010. And honestly, that's the conference they should have stayed. They thought the Pac 12 would give them more exposure and more TV money. Well, that's not the case. The Pac 12 is going down. So going back to the Big 12 just makes a lot of sense, and hopefully it'll happen soon. I've read 2024, but that's where we should stay.
All right. Well, my pundit shot goes to a young lady who happens to be the manager of the Tampa Tarpons. Her name is Rachel Balkovic. Okay. You have a young 35-year-old woman managing a professional sports team. First of all, I'd like to know how she got the job. I know she's only been in baseball for 12 years. I made an attempt to reach out to the Tarpons people to try to get an interview with her, and she declined my request. Doesn't matter. Couldn't get out there in Tampa. How did it work out? I went to Key West with my lovely wife, Candy. Beautiful stuff. I was going to consider another attempt in Lakeland, but home of the Flying Tigers. She obviously wasn't interested in doing it, but I'm going to tell you what. Many, many years ago, I interviewed Sarah Fisher in IndyCars, and Sarah Fisher was one of the most pleasant young ladies I have ever seen in my life and loved. And I enjoyed my interview with her because she wanted to promote motorsports amongst women. Rachel Balkovic blew a good opportunity with me to promote women's sports for other females to be able to get coaching and managerial situations. We have a great one down here in Miami named Kim Ing, and the Marlins also hired a woman for their chief operating officer. Kim has done a great job. I root for success with Kim Ing because if she succeeds, more women will have the opportunity to be able to play roles in front office positions. But Rachel, you blew it. And to be honest with you, I doubt I would even want to talk to you. I might introduce myself to you when I go to Lakeland sometime in September. Rachel, nice meeting you. And you know what? I found another female individual far better that will do a lot more for opportunities than you will. But thank you very much, and goodbye.
All right, this is a little thing for our last topic. This is the thing to the athletes out there. We bring up Caleb Williams and coming up with that. Whether it's him or his agents or managers or whatever coming up with the idea, it's still a brilliant idea. Understand this, athletes, be high school, be college, even if you're back in the AAU right now and you're thinking of all those millions. This isn't the 1980s and 1990s versions of the millions of dollars. This isn't where Larry Bird and Magic Johnson made a combined $3 million a year in '86. This isn't that. The cash doesn't last as long. It doesn't do anything. Cash is nothing anymore. Everything is assets. Everything. It is getting equity shares of teams. It is trying to become good at real estate. It is learning your businesses. It started with Junior Bridgman, just goes to Michael Jordan, and keeps it going on and on. Think and understand this, because there are a lot of athletes that came from poor backgrounds that don't, and remember this part. There's a lot of schools that don't teach proper economics, and they do not teach proper things in schools. They don't. So a lot of these athletes do not know. So understand this. Cash doesn't last long. You can go broke in a hurry if you get the wrong thing. You got to use your head, go after the equity, go after assets, go after everything, and let them cash be the bonus.
All right, and those are our pundit shots, and that does it for the Pundit's Pundit for this week. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Now, you can catch us on Twitter also, South Florida Tribune. That is Scott, Jake the Pundit, Jacob Christner, Sports Scoop 1, Jordan Long, and None 13 myself. So for the Motor City Madmouth, the Rocky Mountain Rebel, and the Pundit himself, I am Denzel Snipes, and we will see you in 7. This is the Pundit's Pundit. Now, on to South Florida Tribune for the Sports Exchange. We're all going to be there. It's a real big party. Bring beer.
You know it.